Hello, I'm Barbara Bond, former mission worker with BMS World Mission. Only when I went to Bangladesh, as it is now, in 1960, I was, of course, known as a missionary, and it was still Baptist Missionary Society. People sometimes ask me what I was doing there for 20 years, and the answer is not a lot. I think I'm a general purpose sort of person. So I seem to have spent a lot of my life filling in when there was a gap and waiting till the right person came to do the job. My official title was women's work, but most of the places I went to, there was no male counterpart, so I ended up doing the men's classes and anything else that required doing. Things I was totally unqualified for, like supervising the building work. And on 2 occasions, I was sent to the town to cover for the mission secretary's leave. That was just doing the admin. And it's only recently occurred to me that all these things have in common is the ability to keep the accounts. However, I was given a post in my own right when there was a reorganisation after the turmoil when Bangladesh became independent. It reminds me of the situation here at the moment because everybody was keen to see how they could do things differently in future. And I was appointed to be one of the new pastoral superintendents in place of the old missionary in charge. I protested that I was not qualified for this, but one of the senior pastors in our district said, "But we want you to do it." So what could I say? The district secretary was very careful to point out that being pastoral chief is not the same thing as being chief pastor. So it didn't matter that I'm not a qualified ordained minister. In effect, I wasn't allowed to do any pastoral work anyway, which was probably right in the circumstances, but I did wonder what somebody coming after me would be allowed to do. But anyway, it gave me a chance to organise, and I arranged the churches into circuits with a plan for the preaching. There's my Methodist background coming out, and at the same time to put into practice a programme of theological education by extension, which was being pioneered by the newly formed Theological College. A group of us used to go to the college in Dhaka to prepare the material for the programmed learning. It was a sort of precursor to computer programs. From there, I went on leave and afterwards was sent to a different district, but I was back there for my final term. The countryside was not a safe place to be. Criminals were taking advantage of the weapons which had been issued to freedom fighters during the fight for independence. For some reason, I'd taken cash out to our village centre, so it was no surprise when 2 men walked into my house. I found myself trapped against the wall with a hand on my throat. I think he was just feeling for a gold cross. And there was a man on the veranda with a gun. I had 2 other people in the house at that time, so I let the men have the keys. it's not worth taking the risk. German missionaries were building a new clinic nearby, and a couple of the men came in to tell me that I ought to have stood up to these robbers. But tragically, the senior missionary was killed when he was paying the workers on the building site a few weeks later. There were the usual flowery speeches at my farewell service in the town, but as we were walking away from the church, one of the women came alongside me and thanked me for staying during this difficult time. So perhaps just being there was enough. We have no idea what effect our work might be doing. Billy Graham's Bible class teacher didn't know one of his boys would become a world-famous evangelist. We can't tell whether something that is heard at Messy Church would be remembered, say, in 10 years' time and having an amazing effect. Paul didn't write his letters to be put in a book of Holy Scripture. Amazingly, his words are very relevant even 2,000 years later. In his correspondence with the churches at Corinth, Paul reminds me of the basis of our faith, the tremendous chapter on death and resurrection of Jesus, the Anointed One. Then Paul comes down to earth and says, hang on in there. Keep on with all the good work you are doing, for you know that nothing you do for Jesus is ever a waste of time. You'll find that verse at 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 58.